Okay, so good afternoon or good day to everyone. Welcome to our topic two, which is the factors affecting self-concept. Last time in our topic one, we learned about what is self-concept, no? And we said that we need to have this understanding of ourselves before we go to our self-concept. And we also define what is self-concept, and we said that concept are set of beliefs that we hold on, no? And as a sum or totality of our beliefs, that made the self-concept a self-concept in our self. Now, in our topic today, we will be talking about what are the factors that affect the so-called self-concept, and what are the building up of things in order to achieve this self concept. Now we have this graph, no? And we have four factors that affect the, the self concept that we have in within ourselves. We have social factors, psychological factors, cultural and lifestyle factors, and personal factors. Now, in cultural and lifestyle factors, we include there, we have the so-called subcultures and the social class system. These are the things that affects our cultural values, and the things that we must know, no, in order to be part of a certain cultural belief, no? Because in reality we need those things or from the environment that we need in order to uh, develop this cultural thinking and lifestyle, no? So in for example, within a society, if you grow up in a certain community which have the culture of being polite, honest, and all the positive attributes. Naturally, as you grow old, no, you will be developing this self concept of cultural and lifestyle factors that when you grow up, you will pass on those attitude of yours into your family someday, no? And that is very important in terms of cultural and lifestyle factors that contribute in your self concept, because without those things, no, you cannot uh, effectively um, be part or be will become active in your own uh, subgroups, no, or subcultures. That's why subcultures and social class systems are very important. Now, when you grow up naman niya in a certain community or environment, in the environment which you grow up na, well, may gatambay sa dalan, kagahod, bilang gapamuyayaw, there are vulgar words na nakabatian from at a very young age, no, until you grow up. Then eventually you will develop those things, no, by means of cultural and lifestyle factors. But in some cases, that is not necessarily, because it depends still on the family. You know. Later on, when we go to the social factors, there are some factors na hindi man maka-change sa imo, but there are influences lang within a certain, there are strong influences lang that will combat your cultural and lifestyle factors. And one of those are the environmental factors na ara sa social factors, no? So little by little, if you grow up in those kinds of environment, but eventually there is a sudden change in your environment where you grow up and you chose to live beyond those environment and develop new kind of good somehow good environment, then eventually the cultural and lifestyle factors um, will be added into your experiences or personal factors naman. So that's why in our graph that is in a circular manner, because all of those things or factors are interrelated to each other. When the cultural and lifestyle factors diminished or was not fulfilled, there is social factors to butt in, and then personal factors to somehow um, create an equal environment for the self concept of ours. So that is called things that we have discussed that is called cultural and lifestyle factors. Now let's go to psychological factors. What is this all about? This is all about the motivation, the perception, the learnings, and the beliefs and attitudes that we develop in our early age until the time that we are mature already. Of course, when we say psychological, that's all in the mind, no? And somehow cognitive factor, kumbaga, in other terms. Now let's talk about motivation and perceptions. No? When you wanted something to achieve, no, there must be a motivation, and motivation comes in two forms. It can either be intrinsic or extrinsic. For the intrinsic motivation, of course, uh, that motivation comes within yourself personally, or the things that you are thinking in the first hand, and you are motivating that within inside your own mind. So if you set a goal to become a millionaire in your 30s or 40s, and then you have set those things or rules inside yourself that you will do this and do that, that is called intrinsic uh, motivation. Now for the extrinsic motivation that is outside your goal, no, or outside yourself, that talks about the motivational things nga makita mo sa environment mo. Not within yourself, but by perhaps in the form of motivation by friends, motivation by advertisements, no? Motivation in videos that you are watching, anything that you can get in in order to absorb that into yourself, that is called extrinsic motivation. Things that motivates you outside yourself is called extrinsic motivation. Now for the perceptions, those are uh, stimuli, no, nga maka-develop sa aton nga perception in terms of psychological factors. This comes with your subjectivity on the preference of your food, for example, no, your preference to your fashion, your preference to the genre of music that you wanted to listen. Those are part of the psychological factors, because um, on the motivational side, the result of that is how you perceive, or the perception that was developed in yourself while doing those kinds of motivational things, so inside yourself or outside yourself, no? And the very important thing about psychological factors are the learning inside your brain and the cognitive learning that you have developed by means of acquiring those motivations and perceptions in yourself. So the learnings accompanied by beliefs and attitudes are very important in terms of psychological factors. So those things describes the psychological factors. Remember the motivation, the perception, and then the learnings. Those are the the key points in psychological factors. Now, in social factors, as I've said, this is somehow uh, accompanied in a cultural and lifestyle factors because it is interrelated in terms of how you behave in a certain community, you know, and inside that community there is cultural and lifestyle factors. So outside the community, that will become your environment someday or even in your younger years. One of the primary factors that affects the self concept is the social factors. Now we have these friends as the main function of the social factors. We have the families, and we have the the subcultural groups that includes acquaintances, that includes relatives, no, and people you know outside the family, things or people that you have crossed with, and exchange uh, ideas, culture, and experiences, along the way in your life. Those are the social factors that can be a factor in a self concept. Now, the family is one of the main components of social factors since in the very beginning you have to stay in your family first, no, and then after the family you will get friends outside your family, then the friends will somehow give you some experiences, insights, roles, no? And after the friends, no, and peers, you will find uh, your your partner in life, no, as you grow old, and then you will find uh, your office mates if you have work someday, and then eventually you will think of the roles and statuses of the people na lang sa life mo. So those are the social factors that contributes the self-concept. So in other words, it evolves, it is changing, and it is adaptive, the social factors. And lastly, we have the personal factors. This talks about the identity of yourself, no? Being for example your age, no, your your occupation, your marital status, your lifestyle, your your economic status. Those are personal factors that somehow affect the self concept. And as I've said again, no, those personal factors can be associated again in the lifestyle factors because when you have or land a job someday, you will earn this and that. No, the stage of life cycle is inevitable, and you will be developing a lot of friends, a lot of enemies, a lot of people around you. And those personal factors will so on develop into a lifestyle and cultural factors. That's the reason why it is interchangeable. And those factors affecting the self concept are also there's a lot of factors also inside those main factors na develop sa ating self-concept. Okay, so always remember that those are four main factors, but outside the main four factors, there's a lot of factors still affecting the self-concept. Okay, now let's go to the building up of self-concept. What is this all about? We must have these four um, buildings or build up self, and we must develop this effectively personally so that we will be uh, we will be or we will be achieving this self concept. Now, what are the things that we need to develop? We must build self awareness. We must build self acceptance, and we must build realization, and then self disclosure. Now, let's take a look at one by one. What are these? Let's start with the self awareness. When we say self awareness, it leads the people to evaluate their behavior against a standard. So there is a awareness within yourself. If you develop this one, you will be able to maximize your standard for physical appearance, no? Your standard for your health, your standard for your morality, your standard for your intellectual performance and how you behave and how you do this and you do that. And and to set an adjustment process in motion for meeting those standards. Why do we need to have the self-awareness? Again, we need to have the self-awareness to evaluate our behavior against the standards. And those standards are the key components in order to become fit, become physically able, mentally able, and psychologically able. So we begin to think of ourselves not just moving actors in the environment, but as an object of our own and others' attention. Experiencing oneself as an object of our own and others' attention is called the self-awareness. If you have the self-awareness, there is a possibility uh, to check your health standards because there are people who are not aware of their health conditions. That's one point. If you have the self-awareness, you will or you might be able to sense danger within your community or within your area because you are aware of that you are, for example, not good in terms of combat skills, then uh, probably as a result you will find something to protect yourself. No, find people, go to the police station. That is the help of or the role of self awareness. Now let's go to the self acceptance. Now, according to Shepard in 1979, he said that the self-acceptance is the individual satisfaction or happiness with oneself, and it is thought to be necessary for good mental health. No, so amo ni ang hambal ni Shepard. So that is very true when we talk about self-acceptance because there's nothing more to attain, no, when you have already accepted yourself. It talks about accepting your weaknesses and your strength, no? Kung ano makaya mo, kung ano ang maubra mo, then so be it. That's it, no? That's self-acceptance. And it also talks about the self-acceptance in terms of your 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 appearance, no? Because in the problem is or the dilemma is of other people, if they lack self-acceptance, if they are not good looking but they have money, then automatically they will go to the doctor, no, and then decided to redo everything that they have in their face nor in their body because of they have the money to do that. However, they lack the self acceptance of the self concept. No? Well, we cannot blame them since probably they misdevelop those kind of factors that affects the self concept. That's the danger of having undeveloped factors, no? Or you have sided in the not so good environment that we have, and the psychological also, or psychological factors as well. Having being aware of who we really are rather than the person we wish to be, the next step on our journey to self concept, take note, is to accept ourselves. So we do not need to be uh, like that person, no? In terms of appearance or in terms of capabilities. We have this own uniqueness within ourselves. We just simply have to accept who we are because we are born unique and different from other people. I may be good at this but bad at this, and the people that you know may be good, no, in terms nga bad kaya sa amo nga butang, but they are very good at it. Mayara man, you are very good at it, and the person that you know is very bad at it. So that's the power of self acceptance. Self acceptance involves self understanding, realistic, though subjective, awareness of one's strengths and weaknesses that will resolve in an individual's feeling about oneself that they are unique worth, or you are capable of doing different things. So that's the self acceptance. Now, after the self acceptance and self awareness, we have the self realization. Self realization is the product of self acceptance and self awareness because you cannot realize ourselves, no? Without accepting and being aware of who we are and what we are. After the acceptance and uh, and awareness, you will come into a point that you need your realization in yourself. This is somehow putting a goal, no, in order to grow more, to set a role model to yourself, the ideal self that you wanted to become or you wanted to be someday. No? The term self-realization means to fulfillment of one's own potential. It is realizing our inner potentialities. This step on self-concept route involves growth and development motivated from within. It is a willingness to pursue our ideal selves on our own, to grow and to change because we think that is very important. So once you accepted yourself, once you are very aware of yourself, you come to a point that you wanted to realize your worth as a person, and you begin to think of uh, what is what will you become in 20 to 30 years time, no? Ano ang maubra ko, ano matapos ko, ano ang ma-fulfill ko in that given time, no? So self-realization is the product of being aware and being self-accepted. And then the last part, or the end goal of building up the self concept, is what we call self-disclosure. These are the things that you think to a certain point that no amount of judgment of people around you, or the things na ginahambal nila sa imo, will not be more of an issue to you, but more on a motivational part. So this is the thing about self-disclosure. It is the process of letting another person know what we think, feel, want, and that is telling others about ourselves. You have already developed yourself realization, awareness, and acceptance. Now it's your time to get out of your shell and tell the people around you that this is me, this is myself, and um, you have these so-called goals in your life to achieve. So that's the main goal of the building up of self-concept in ourselves. Once we develop those things, no, we might have this so-called confidence in talking to others, no, of what we wanted, who we are to be, no, in terms of life experiences, personal circumstances, your feelings, your dreams, your opinions, and so on. No? So those are the kinds of informations that you wanted to tell others about yourselves. And again, this is the final stage towards the maturity, or the mature self-concept, that we are going to reveal who we are as a person. This is where our self-awareness plays an important role. Not just self-awareness, but self-acceptance also, and realizations. We need to know ourselves well before we can disclose or reveal anything to others about our real self. Then, according to research, it indicates that self-disclosure leads to self-contentment, helps a person to be more perceptive, adaptive, competent, trusting, and positive towards others. Okay, so all of those things that we talk about are very important and essential in building up your own self, no, as a person, who we are really as a member of the community, as a member of your family, as a friend to your friends, no, as a classmate to your classmate. So I hope you learned something today, and I want you to think of those things that we have discussed today, and I want you to realize things. I want you to have the self-acceptance, self-awareness, and then realization, and eventually self-disclosure. Because those four things are very important in developing the self-concept that we have today, and even uh, in the future. So still, there is a seat work in our LMS. I want you to visit our LMS and check out our seat work prepared for this topic. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you learned a lot today.